have well experience in it. I started off in social media marketing, and then I became VP of a publishing company in Houston, and I acquired that company 4 years ago. So this is not my first rodeo. I've worked with authors for a really long time, but most common questions is PR and marketing, right? So let's talk about how we compare those things together and what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be looking at what PR opportunities are, what they look like, how you can do them on your own, and where you should be sharing those opportunities, aka marketing them, right? So in case you don't already know, this is definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. There's no instant gratification things. As much as I wish we could provide those things, it's not one of those things. It definitely takes time to build relationships with media contacts, all those kinds of things. And we're going to dive into that. So let's talk about what PR is. Everybody in your small community, small town, in this group, you all know who each other is, publishing, all those things, what books you got going on, right? But people like me down here in Texas have no idea. We have no idea what your company is publishing, what genres, what books you have coming out, what books you have written or published yourself, right? So PR is going to get you outside of that smaller community. And PR looks like magazine articles, writing and being featured in magazines, doing press releases about any event or upcoming book that you or your publishing company has, any speaking engagement that any of your authors or you yourself have done, are going to do, or if you have a national buy, we send those out too. So it's keeping a record of all the things that you have done and the accomplishments and exciting things that go on within your company or you just as an author, right? A lot of that's going to look like a media kit, which most people don't enjoy creating. They can be rather long, but a media kit is what you will use to pitch yourself, to pitch your authors, or even to pitch your company, your publishing company to other media affiliates that you want to help with, right? So that's going to be one of the things that's super important when it comes to PR. Now, another avenue in what it looks like is book signings, conferences, and reviews, right? So generally when you're doing PR, publishers, authors, whatever realm that you guys want to see that as, these are going to be the three things that if you're publishing other authors, they're going to ask you for: book signings. Can I be a featured, speaker at a conference? How do I get reviews, editorial reviews, all those kinds of things, right? Or things that you would think about go with PR, and that's what someone that does PR or you can do yourself. Later on, I will show you where you can go and how you can do these things yourself. You don't always have to hire someone else to help you out with them. Speaking opportunities, podcasts, being a featured author, appearances, those kinds of things. All of this encompasses what PR is, and getting outside of your comfort zone and outside of the smaller community and niche markets that you currently have, that you're a celebrity in, and that's fabulous. And I love that you're a celebrity in those small communities, but we need to get you outside of that so you sell more books, right? Or your publishing company sells more books. That's kind of the gist of it and the point of it, right? The point of doing PR. So where can you look for these opportunities that you can pitch yourself or your authors if you want to do and take on PR yourself? Some of these are going to be subscriptions that you have to pay for. Some of them are going to be free. Radio Guest List is $8 a month, and they give you information. They send out podcasts, radio shows, all of that that's looking for guests to be featured. They're going to send you something twice a day. I check those out. That's generally what we do. Hero, which is Help a Reporter Out, is another one. It's free. You can sign up for it, and there's hundreds of people and reporters looking for information, and you can always manipulate your topic to fit what they're looking for. That's very easy to do. If you have a book, like someone mentioned that they publish historical fiction, if there's something going on that pertains to history, you can kind of slide in there and be like, oh, well, I've published a historical fiction, or that's what I publish. Here's some people I recommend that you speak to, right? So that one is more flexible in that one. An influencer marketing tool, which is IZA. The number one question I get asked when it comes to marketing is, are you going to send my book to influencers? Well, if you want them to go to influencers, yes, we will. And we will help you get the best deal. An influencer marketing tool that IZA is going to help you. That is going to be a monthly subscription. That's anywhere between $30 to $200, depending on what level you want to sign up for, right? But they will put you in contact with influencers, and then they're going to have their own kind of pricing structure and what they want if you're wanting to go down influencer marketing, right? That's the one tool that you can use. Now, podcast guest is one that is free to use. They send me information 2 to 3 times a week, and it will be high rated podcasts that are looking for guests. But the cool thing about this one is you can also put your information out there that you're willing to be on a podcast and what you're looking for, and it will pitch you to some of those, but it'll pull you up in the newsletter, which is like someone I would receive, right? It'll pull you up in there, and then I can be like, oh, you would be perfect for my show. Let me reach out to you. So you can also do it. So it works 2 ways. Book awards and conferences. That's perfect place to look for when you're doing PR, right? Authors, publishers, you guys all know about book awards, going to conferences. You guys are going to have one, it sounds like, coming up soon, right? So pitching you to speak there as a publisher and as an author, having your authors pitch themselves there. Those are different things that, is where to look when it comes to publishing. Instagram for reviews. If you are not leveraging Instagram and the whole just bookstagrammers that's on Instagram, there's several people out there that are accredited that will give you reviews and help kind of push you in different directions to help you get more visibility on your books, as well as doing Instagram tours, which you can also do. It's similar to a blog tour, but it's on Instagram within the book community on Instagram. So that would be one avenue where you could look to kind of expand your visibility, right? We're all about getting further out there than where you're currently well known. Facebook groups. A lot of people underrate these, but Facebook has made a lot of changes when it comes to groups. They are going off and becoming a lot more popular, and they are they are more regulated in the sense of there's not as many spammers and bots in there. A lot of the admins and stuff within that have that. But if you're ever running a promotion on your book, which I always recommend doing, every 3 to 6 months, even as a publisher running a promotion on one of your author's books, because it helps get them more visibility, more readership, and new ones, right? Which is what everybody wants. These Facebook groups will help you leverage that to get new readers, get new reviewers, all of that. So, and plus it's a wonderful place to meet others within the publishing community or other authors, and to help build your author networking publishing, network, which will help you expand further out, right? It's a good way of doing that. So the best way to think about this when it's like where to look, you're the spider creating your own web, especially when it comes to marketing, right? So the more connections and ways that you kind of feed yourself out there and your authors out there, the bigger your web's going to be, the more visibility that you're going to get, right? When we all see a spider web and it's huge, we're like, oh my gosh, it's a huge spider web, stay away from it. So this one is going to do the opposite though. It's like, wow, look, they are everywhere. Their authors are getting out there, right? I want to go to them. So that's just one way of doing it, right? LinkedIn. Don't underrate LinkedIn, you guys. It's a wonderful platform, and you only have to post on it when it comes like once a week, because it keeps circulating it the whole time, right? The whole week. So any post that you put on LinkedIn is going to circulate for the entire week, but it's perfect to put articles that you've been on, press releases out there, and get seen in a different market. So LinkedIn is another place, but you can also find award-winning podcasts on LinkedIn that are looking for guests, and they will book you if you send them a direct message. So that is just another way, especially if you're looking for higher end opportunities like award-winning and have a bigger reach. LinkedIn's going to be your go-to for that. A lot of them are on LinkedIn in a professional environment. So make sure you don't count that one out when you're looking for these opportunities. Now, let's talk about the marketing part, which is my favorite part, right? So marketing, everybody struggles with it. So if you're doing your PR, right, you're building your web, you're pitching yourself to get more radio spots, podcasts, you're pitching yourself to be on magazines and be featured and do all of those things. Now, what are you supposed to do with them, right? You're going to leverage them with your community that you've built on your social media platforms, whatever platforms it is, right? I always encourage to be on 3, and it's the 3 that you're most comfortable with, and pick the one that you know the most, and then maintain the other 2, right? You don't have to be everywhere all at once, because you can't do everything 100% effective, but you can do one thing 100% effective, and you can maintain everything else, right? So when it comes to social media, what are you going to post? That's the number one question I get asked. Post your podcast interviews, your press release, your newsletters that you send out, right? What upcoming events that you have going on. Let your readers know, right, where you're going to be and expand it, right? Because people are going to go to see what you're doing. So I don't know how many of you guys do this. I do this, right? So when I'm looking up a new book, say I've seen a Facebook ad and there's this new book. I have no idea who the author is, but their storyline sounds kind of good. I'm going to go check out their social media pages to see what they've done. What have they been posting? Where have they been? Have they won any awards? Do any of that? Any magazines that I can kind of get a feel of the author besides the story, right? Because there's always a story behind the story. So that's where you're going to show or share most of your content when you get it, because in PR, you're creating content, right? Your press releases, all of these things, speaking opportunities, they're all going to send you links so that way you can share them. And they're going to want to be shared. A lot of media opportunities are going to want you to share it and tag them in it, right? Because they're giving you time on their platforms. You have to kind of return the favor by tagging them in it, right? It's like social media etiquette that people don't usually talk about. So make sure that when you're sharing it, even if you did it 3 months ago, it doesn't matter. Recirculate that thing, right? And tag them in it. Been like, oh, this was such a great interview. I can't wait to be back on, right? That's going to be super important. And you can tag them in anything that pertains to them, right? It's always super important. Your website is another amazing opportunity that not everybody takes advantage of. You need to have a media tab on your website and have everywhere listed that you have spoken, appeared, your press releases, all of that. Or for your authors, right? You need to have that whole thing on there because it is important. Media opportunities and podcast hosts, those kind of people are going to go and look at your website to see if you have a media tab, and then they're going to see where you've been featured before, and they're most likely going to go and listen to a couple of those to see how well you interview, right? That's going to be very important. So you want to make sure that you want to have that so you can share all of these things on there. Now, let me move my picture because you guys are slightly in my way. Your pictures are. When it comes to press releases, right? Everybody thinks doing an EIN newswire is going to get you a lot of visibility. Let me tell you something. That's going to cost you about $200 to send one out, right? And it still is limited, and you're not guaranteed to get visibility. You're going to have more success once you build up media relationships and affiliations, right? If you decide to go that route, sending it to them, and then if you use bloggers, those kinds of things, sending it to them and then sending it within your local community, within the newspaper and the news avenue, you'll have more success doing that than you will doing an EIN newswire. It's a lot cheaper, and you're going to get more visibility in the area or region that you want it to be than kind of nationally, and you're paying all this money, you don't get anything, right? Who wants to spend $200 to maybe get something? No one, right? You want somewhat of a guarantee when you're sending out a press release. But the beauty of this is the way that you can leverage a press release, it's not going to cost you anything, is by posting it on LinkedIn. You can post it in your article section on LinkedIn as a post on LinkedIn, and that baby's going to keep circulating for a week and a half, right? And you're going to have people share it, and you can always kind of bring it back up. And this is, one of the ways that you can utilize it that's not going to cost you a lot of money, and it will guarantee you're going to get eyes and visibility on it, and it could lead to more potentials, right? You can even send your media release or your press release, if you're wanting to get in libraries, or you're wanting to pitch your author to libraries, you can include these things in there. They're going to be expecting that, and that will also help you when it comes to your pitches and doing those kinds of things if you decide to go down that avenue, right? So number one question I always get asked is, well, I've done all these speaking things and I've been a keynote and I've done all that. Where am I supposed to share it? These are the 3 avenues and how you should be utilizing those opportunities that you get, right? Press releases leave a trail. So then, you can add those to your media kit. And then when you want to pitch yourself to be a keynote or be a speaker at a big conference, right? You have this whole record of everything that you've done and you've sent it out. And so, they're bound to see it at some point, right? This is the best way to do that. There's other ways that you can do that, but this is the best way to utilize your time and the most effective way to get eyes on the things that you're wanting people to see and to hear and to experience and get a taste of your personality, right? So why does marketing and PR make the perfect pair? So here's how it works. This is the marathon, not the sprint, right? This is the question everybody asks me generally most of the time. And they're like, well, I want to send it out and I want to sell 6,000 copies of my book. If you do that, please let me know how that happens, because I want to know myself. Okay. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And it's mostly because if you're a publisher, if you are your own author, if you publish other people, right? Most of the time, no one knows who that author is, right? Most of the time, they don't even know who you are or your publishing company, right? You have to train them to know who you are, what you publish, what kinds of writers you publish, if they're good at interviewing, what kind of shows they're going to be on, right? What can they expect from you or your author or your whatever, right? That takes time, right? Because I'm sure all of you guys know, if not, hopefully this is the one thing that you learned from tonight. If nothing else, is people buy from people that they feel like they relate to, right? They trust, they relate to, right? So when it comes to selling your books, you have to get them to trust you and relate to you and enjoy seeing those things, right? Build that relationship. So that takes 6 months to a year and a half, sometimes in the extreme. If you have 50 authors and they're all first time authors, okay, that's going to take some more time, just a little bit more time, right? My kids are coming in. So when it comes to marathon, not a sprint, that's what I mean, is it takes time to develop that kind of relationship on any aspect, a business aspect, just being an author, any aspect, right? So here's how we're going to do it. This is the whole, timeline. If you want to take a screenshot, I will send over my slides afterwards. But when it comes to PR, you're wanting to catapult your name, right? Get to the global stage, do all those things. What all can you do? So having those articles, getting speaking engagements, like we talked about, being on podcasts. Now, when it comes to podcasts, don't just only want to be on huge podcasts, right? Because if you're a first-time author, or if you don't have that many accolades and awards yet, I'm sure that you will, but yet, right? Most likely those big opportunities aren't ready for you, right? They're looking in other avenues. So start off small and grow big. The more exposure that you get, the more practice that you get on these podcasts, the more credibility within that arena, right? The more that those bigger opportunities are going to want you, right? Stepping stones, building blocks, however you want to look at it. Now, conferences, getting rave reviews, right? So rocking conferences, y'all are scoring raving reviews, which I'm sure all of you guys have done. And then you guys sound like all of you guys have done conferences, doing those kinds of things. Gets your name out there and does stuff. Sometimes it doesn't always reap benefits. You don't always get an author or make a sale or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't always happen, but you get your name out there in a new arena that you had, or they had no idea who you were, and now they do. It's put you on their radar, right? When it comes to doing everything together, marketing helps you share those opportunities, those articles, those speaking engagements, all the podcasts you've been on, the conferences that you're attending, the awesome reviews that you guys have, editorial or just, everyday reader reviews, which I feel like everyday reader reviews are super important because it's authentic, right? And that's who you want, is from those readers, right? Marketing helps you share those out further than those one-time opportunities are. Those one-time opportunities are going to be sent out to that media contact, whether it's their newsletter, their channels, whatever, one time, and that's it. So you have the power to recirculate that however often as you want to keep it going, right? So you have the power of doing that. That's what marketing is, right? So when you put those two things together, when you do all these speaking opportunities, all these conferences, all this stuff, and then you're sharing it on top of it, tagging those media contacts in and doing all of that, right? You get the perfect pair, right? Because you're literally leveraging the best of both worlds. So when it comes to doing that and you're putting the spotlight in all these opportunities, it looks like you as an author are, going all over the place. You're at this conference and then you're over here and, oh my gosh, check out this amazing review that your book got. And now this book 2 is coming out in 6 months. And oh my, and then you have this nice cover, right? You have all these things. It gives readers something to look forward to. It gives media, hey, look, I'm doing all of these things. Why don't you want me on your show, right? It shows those things. It shows you're popular and then they're going to want you on, right? When it comes to social media and you have things that go viral and they're popular, right? They've just been shared or multiplied so many times, right? That's what you're going to do and how you're going to leverage all your PR or opportunities that you get with the marketing twist of it, right? So pairing them together. But I'm going to stress on it. It is a marathon, you guys. It's not a sprint. So 6 months, a year and a half, It depends if you're a publishing company, how long, how many authors you have, how long that they've been authors, what all you've done previously. It takes a little bit more time. If you're a fresh newbie, straight out of the gate author, 6 months is probably, more reasonable for you guys, because then we can pitch you out, or you can, pitch yourself and get on more shows and do all of these things, and you'll get more visibility, and that'll lead to more sales when you start sharing those marketing opportunities, right? The more that you share those and you leverage those things, the marketing part of the PR is what's going to make you money, right? So to be fully transparent, which is just how I am, like, PR is not going to be a huge lead in generating sales. Your marketing aspect and sharing everything on social media, drawing up that visibility, sharing within groups, building new relationships and connections, and all of those things, that's what's going to lead to sales. It may not lead to sales today, and it may not lead to sales in 3 months. It may lead to sales in 6 months, and it may double in sales in a year, right? But you have to stick with it. It's something that you have to be constant with, and you have to continuously do it, right? Because you're training your audience what to see, when to see it, where you're going to be, what you're going to do, right? The moment that you let off of that for a week or 2 weeks, you got to build back up that momentum. It takes more time, right? So that's why when you pair these things together, oh, you got an email of your interview, share it that day, right? This is how you can blend those two things up together. Now, here's how you can do it yourself. You can screenshot this one too if you want to, or I will, like I said, send my slides to help you out. So doing reviews and book awards, I'm sure all of you guys get reviews for your books or your author's books, any of those things, and you know about book awards, right? There's several places you can go. You guys know Goodreads, Instagram. We all know that. I'm sure that you guys know how to pitch your book to reviewers, right? Editorial reviewers, all of those things. All of those things are going to be super important. Researching and submitting to the awards that are fit for your genre. Now, okay, I also have another nickname. I'm notorious for loopholes. And if I can find a connection within some kind of subgenre that you have in your book and a book award, I'm going to pitch you for it, because then you're going to stand out amongst everybody else, right? So try to get creative when it comes to that, when it comes to pitching and making your book fit within a genre. Don't exaggerate it, okay? If your book's a memoir, it's not going to fit in historical fiction, okay? We can't do that big of an exaggeration, right? But, historical romance, all those things you can kind of play within each other. Setting up library tours and book signings. So library events, I just told you guys how. Use your press release and your media kit to pitch to them, especially if you have awards or you have authors that do have awards. Pitch them and present them why, that they're local to the community, all of these things. Book signings is more of a challenge. The reason that it is a challenge is because even big New York Times best-selling authors are stepping away from them because they're just not as popular anymore. A lot of bookstores aren't doing them. A lot of independent bookstores, if they do host you, they want to be able to return your book, and if they don't sell it, and you end up spending more money than you make, right? So book signings are hit or miss depending on just a lot of different things. Book signing tours, all of those things, they're less popular now, unless you're a celebrity just because they have the name recognition, but it's not something that's super common within small presses or, indie authors and those kinds of things. A lot of people won't take a chance, so it becomes more difficult. Pitching to media. Nobody knows your book or genre that you publish better than yourself, right? So you guys are perfect to pitch it, because I can only do so much for you, right? I generally talk to people and write down, and then I try to make sure that I'm in their voice when I pitch it, but you guys know it a lot better than I do. So search for your podcast, your conferences, whatever you are wanting to pitch yourself to. And I like to recommend, this has been successful for me, and I'm sure it will be for you guys, make it as personal as you can, right? Address the person by their name, talk to them as if you were talking to them in real life. I don't always make things super formal because I want them to know, hey, this is my personality. So I try to make sure that the personality of the author comes across in the pitch, and it's not just like copy and paste, right? You want to make sure everything's genuine and authentic to your personality, so they can already have a feel of that before they decide to interview you, if they're going to have you on or whatever it is, right? That's going to be my best advice that I can give you. Radio guest list, we talked about podcast guest, speaker opportunity. Speaker opportunity is one that is not well known. And I always say it is the holy grail of opportunities. So you can pay whatever level you want of whatever you're looking for. So if you're looking just for radio, you can pay just for radio. If you want radio, podcast, and conferences, you can pay for that level and it'll present you with that and you'll get that twice a week. That also shows you where TEDx talks are going to be, and you can pay for that. And then you can pitch yourself. It'll show you what city and all of those things. You can pitch yourself to them as well. And it's like a one-stop destination. A lot of media outlets are on there. So that is the best place to go. It is a pay to play though. So you are going to be looking at anywhere between 70 to 150 a month, depending on what you're wanting to pitch yourself to, right? So that's why it's the holy grail is what I like to call it. Create and tailor your pitch, which we did talk about. Make it authentic and genuine to your personality. Your media kit. The best way to summarize a media kit, right, is you want to highlight how darn amazing you are, or your publishing company is, or how amazing these authors that are coming out are, right? That's what your media kit is. You have to brag about yourself and how amazing you are and why people should book you, right? So if you have a hard time bragging about yourself, having someone else kind of help you with that might be easier. If you're like me, I have a hard time doing that. So I usually have to have my husband write that because it's just difficult for me. Building media relationships. So if you're going to do PR yourself, right? And I don't know how you guys are, but a lot of authors and publishers in which I work with or talk to or communicate with, they either just want to write and they just want to publish books, and they are not, they're more introvert than extrovert, right? I clearly am super extrovert, right? So building media relationships, the easiest way to do that is when you pitch yourself on your show and you land that opportunity is by doing what I told you to do, which is to share it on all of your social media platforms and tag them in it. Make sure you're following them so then you can tag them in it and they see it. Mentioning them if you put them in your newsletters or your press release or anything like that, that's going to help you build up that relationship a lot quicker than being introvert and shy about it, right? So if you want to build up those media relationships to do PR for your publishing company, that's the best way to do it. If you have a lot of authors, like, I don't know, let's just say that you have 20 authors that you've published, right? Leveraging that number for our media affiliate and being like, hey, I have 20 amazing authors. Can we have, 1 or 2 spots a month? A lot of publicists and stuff will do that for you. But if you want to do it yourself, you're more than welcome to. And that will help you maintain and build that media relationship and build that spider web that we were talking about earlier, right? And build that spider web of media relationships. So then you can kind of have a like a file of media contacts that you can pitch yourself or a new author to at different times. Social media, you guys, I don't know if you guys have a love-hate relationship with social media. I do social media for a living and I have a love-hate relationship with it. Okay. So you're not alone if you feel that way. It can be very overwhelming, which is why I said pick 3. Pick the one that you know 100% that you can do, no problem at all, no fault, no nothing. You're not going to miss anything, and maintain those other 2. Okay. Because if you miss a day on those other 2, it's okay. But pick the one that you know the best and you're the most comfortable with. That's going to take a lot of the overwhelm out. But make sure that you're sharing all of your opportunities that you have on your social media channels, your newsletters, all of those kinds of things is what you want to make sure you're sharing everything on. So by a raise of hand, because I can see you guys in the corner, how many of you guys already do that now? You guys share everything that's going on within your writing journey, publishing journey, anything like that? Raise your hand. Okay. Sarah, you're on my screen so I can see you. Okay. Yay. Yeah. So that's what you need to be doing, but also within groups, right? So I don't know how many of you guys utilized Facebook author groups. Okay. Food for thought. I always say this number and I get a lot of gas with it, but you guys are all muted. So just make the facial expression. Okay. So when it comes to Facebook groups, I am a part of now currently today, because I went and counted before I got on with you guys, of 1,250 different author and publisher like promotional communities within Facebook, right? I manage a lot of them and I am a part of them without managing them. And it will do wonders when you're looking to build author relationships or just a community of it and you're looking for new editors or cover designers or whatever you're looking for, there's a group out there that will help you and give you recommendations, right? But when it comes to running promotions on your groups, if you're part of author publishing promotional groups, a lot of them have strict rules, right? But if you ever decide to run any kind of promotion on an ebook or whatever for your author or yourself, being a part of those groups and posting in them, they are very loyal and they will go in there. If they're interested in your book, they'll let you know and they'll download it and they'll help you out, but they will give you honest feedback when it comes to it, right? Good or bad, they'll give you honest feedback. And that's why social media is on here for doing it yourself, because it is important. Building those relationships, which is tagging media affiliates, other authors. So if you are on a speaking opportunity that's like a panel, right? And you're one of the ones that are on there, tag every author that was on there with you. Build that relationship, because you don't know what media context they have that they may help you get or help, pitch your company to. You have no idea, right? So you always want to be on the lookout for other author opportunities, connections, all of those things, network, okay? Remember, we're building this big spider web. Whether you like spiders or not, it's just going to be a really pretty web, okay? That's how we're going to do it. So all of this is going to be super important when it comes to pitching yourself, getting outside of your community, right? Because you guys are all celebrity famous in your communities, and high five. I love it. And I want to know more about each and every one of you that's on here, right? But I don't, because I don't know you, right? I don't know you. I don't know your authors. I don't know what you've written. Because I'm way down here in the South, right? Where we say y'all all the time. But this is how you can branch out and get out of there, right? So food for thought, right? So you're probably asking me, we're like, if you find all these, should you be super picky when it comes to speaking opportunities? What if you only want to get paid for speaking opportunities? All those things, right? I'm going to cover that here right now in the do-it-yourself, so we can just go with it, okay? One, you never know who's going to be listening to an opportunity, and you never know what could come out of an opportunity. So I wouldn't turn down an opportunity unless it was specifically not towards your genre. So if you write historical fiction and like a horror sci-fi podcast wants to talk to you and you have no elements of that, that's clearly not a good fit, right? You don't want to be on that. But when it comes to international opportunities or speaking, those kinds of things you might want to be more open to, because you never know what can happen over there. Like I have one of my affiliates has a media contact over in London that's at a school, and his reach is huge, right? There's another one down in Australia. So sometimes we have to play with time zones, and I have learned a lot over the years about time zones. I'm still working on converting to Australian time, but we're getting there. So when it comes to those kinds of things, don't be really quick to turn down, oh, well, this only has 10 people that listen to it or whatever. Remember, we're doing stepping stones, building blocks to get you more famous and outside your bubble, right? This is the way to do that. They're all going to be on social media. They're all going to be all over all kinds of channels, right? So while I'm here on social media, I have a feeling, I don't know if all of you are on it or not, I get asked about TikTok a whole lot. And so let me dive into TikTok, because when it comes to social media, everybody asks me, should I be on TikTok? The thing that I'm going to tell you about TikTok is if it's working for you and you write within those genres of like thriller or romance or, paranormal, that's going to be really successful on there. But another thing is it's opened up a lot of pirating of books, right? So you have to be careful when you're on it. You need to be careful on any social media platform. I will 100% tell you that. But only certain genres do good on TikTok. So if you're not within those 3 genres in which I just named, it may not be worth it. On top of that, it is a huge time suck, because you're having to create new content all the time. It's not something that you can recycle content, because people are going to know. So you're going to have to be creating new videos and dicing up your book trailers if you create those kinds of things, and it's going to take a lot more time, and it's going to be way more overwhelming than sticking to something that you're more comfortable with and scaling that up. So food for thought on that one, because I get asked about that one a whole lot. So when it comes to doing all of this yourself, it sounds overwhelming, but I know that all of you guys can do this 100%, right? You all can do this. If you don't want to do it, you have someone like me, right? So someone like me, I told you I've been in PR and marketing for 12 years. We've done all kinds of stuff, from social media management, creation, book marketing, on top of running promotions. for authors, helping them doing their drive to #1 on Amazon and aiming for USA Today bestseller and all of those things on top of PR. So if you don't want to pitch yourself or do anything like that, there's me, but there's several other people or publicists out there that you can look for that will fall within whatever your price range is and whatever you're needing, right? It's all good. Sometimes you're going to need help, and sometimes it can get overwhelming and daunting and challenging, right? So there's people out there like me that will do it all for you, handle all of it, X amount of authors, pitch, do all that, reviews, editorial reviews, all of those things, right? So if you want help or you need help, you can find it out there. Even if you just have a question, I'm an open book. So generally, that's how it goes. But most people are pretty friendly and an open book when it comes to these things. So on top of that, I know I was supposed to go for 45 minutes, but I generally have a lot of questions around this topic. So I am open 100%. You have my time for the rest of it. And I am open to answering questions. Oh, it's always weird when you look at yourself on the big screen. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aimee. That was awesome. So if you want to ask your question verbally, maybe just raise your hand and I'll call on you in order that you do that. But in the meantime, I had a couple of questions from the chat. Most recently from Tom. He wanted to know, what is an Instagram tour?
Yeah. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever done a blog tour. It's very similar when you do an Instagram tour. So what it is they're going to receive your book. A lot of them are going to want physical copies of your book, but some will do ebooks depending on how finesse you get with them, right? But they'll take pictures of your book, they'll post their review, and they'll tell everyone to go. And a lot of times they'll do a giveaway or a raffle. So it kind of helps draw attention towards your book. And if you're wanting to build your newsletter lists and things like that, it will help you on as well on top of that. Here in Texas, we have one that is, if your book is based in Texas, has some kind of Texas affiliate, if the author was Texas, if you have some kind of Texas in you or in your book or whatever, then Lone Star Lit will run that for you, and they have their own Instagrammers, influencers within that book community that they use and leverage. And so it goes on their blog and on their Instagram. So that's kind of what an Instagram tour is. It's the best of both worlds.
Okay, we had a question from Mary Jo who wanted to know, what social media do you suggest starting with?
So that really depends on what genre you write or you publish, Mary Jo. So the easy ones to go to, right, is Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn strictly for the purpose of posting your press releases and your articles if you're featured in a magazine and your awards, right? If you don't want to be on Facebook, then I would do Instagram and LinkedIn and just do two. If you're wanting to do and focus more on Goodreads, you can kind of build your Goodreads following and those things up as well. That can be utilized pretty well as well. So that's generally what I do, but I always recommend to reconsider if you don't want to be on Facebook, because the Facebook groups is a lot better now. And that's someone that hated them. They are a lot better now, and they are very pivotal for me when I'm running promotions for authors and I'm helping draw traction or build new author relationships and those kinds of things. They have been very strong in that and building it. And I've met some really amazing people. So that's one of the advice I would give you when it comes to that.
Aimee, I was curious if you could elaborate a little bit more on what to do with the Facebook groups. Like, is it just participating and organically interacting with them, or what do you recommend doing with the Facebook groups?
So it would be both. So if there's a post on there, like if you're in a group, I'm in like a self-publishing group because we assist with that sometimes. And so there's one in there that's like, oh, for editor recommendations, if they're branched into a new genre, those kinds of things, and just giving your 2 cents. If you're in a promotional group promoting your book, make sure you're posting about your book, how long that promotion is going to be on, and interacting with whoever likes it or comments on it. That's where like a social media manager, which we also do, but that's where they kind of come in and make it easier, because it can get kind of daunting when it comes to commenting and staying engaged like that. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time doing that. It's not something that you need to spend hours doing, but just kind of popping in there every now and then. And if you see a post that you liking it and having a rough interaction is going to go wonders, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, I saw a good question from Nancy in the chat. So, like, if you're posting a press release on LinkedIn, do you keep the same press release format, or do you rewrite it a little bit, or how are you posting that press release?
No, so you can change it up however you want. So media is used to looking at it a certain way. I have a media affiliate that does it more as a media release instead of a press release, right? So I like to keep the same format when I upload it. Make sure it's all structured the same way, because if it's going out to news, I have a lot of like news affiliates and things like that on there, so they're used to seeing it a certain way. So I put it on there. If you're wanting to break it up and make it different posts, then it doesn't need to be in that format. But me personally, I keep it in that format. I feel like it gets more recognition that way and it looks more professional. So it depends on who's on your page and what you're feeling, but I always just keep it the same.
So, but does that sometimes mean your LinkedIn post might just be like an article you're sharing, and sometimes then it's a full press release? Like it's just different stuff all the time?
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to sharing, right? You want to share that a bunch of different stuff's going on, right? You want to show that you're busy. All of you guys are on social media and you go through your news feed and you see the same name every day or every other day, whether they're really doing that stuff or they did that stuff, a week or 2 weeks ago, they're sharing it and you're like, wow, they're like all over the place doing all this stuff. I want to be doing that, right? So you can always break it up. So there's different ways that you can recirculate content where it's different on each platform. So on LinkedIn, I would post the whole press release, right? In your newsletter, I would post like a blurb of it, of like, hey, this is where I was, or this is where I'm going to be. Come check me out. And like, hyperlink it to wherever you're going to be if they have a section featured on you, those kinds of things. And then on social media, pull little tidbits from it. Like I have one press release I wrote the other day that we got 2 reviews from Octavia Roundoff and Chris Humphreys. And so what we did from that press release is we pulled those reviews and puppies and rainbows, which just made it all happy and cheerful. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's happened. And we put it in the news release, right? In her newsletter. So we still pulled some of it and repurposed that content in a different way. So you want to make sure that you're recycling it, but it's not the same on each platform. So if you schedule out your posts on social media and stuff, make sure that I always use the wrong word, but make sure you stagger them. So if you have your press releases, the full things being posted on LinkedIn on Monday, that that's going to circulate for a week and a half. So pull your blurbs, like if you were doing it on reviews, pull those reviews and create a graphic and post it on Instagram on Wednesday. And then you're not going to post it on Facebook if that's one that you're going to use until next week, right? Once it's already kind of run its course. So those are different ways to do it to utilize it. You can do the same thing on LinkedIn. What I tend to do is I have it listed as an article. So I upload the whole thing as an article. And then if there's something specific that I want to highlight, then I'll share that article within the headline or the copy part, and I'll pull out what I want people to know. If it's like something that's super important, like those reviews, or if you hit, New York Times bestseller, that's one you should just be like, check this out, right? So those kinds of things. So that's different ways that you can circulate it and still make it work to your advantage.
Okay, good. Another question from Mary Jo. She wondered, do you recommend getting a Kirkus review?
Okay, so I will give you my honest opinion on Kirkus review, and I hope that you guys don't hate me for it. So the weight of a Kirkus review from people like me in the industry and media affiliates, we know that those cost a lot of money and that you have a lot of money, right? And I haven't seen a bad Kirkus review recently. I know that they do hand them out, so I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is the weight of a Kirkus review is not going to be as heavy as trying to get like a Publisher's Weekly review and submitting within their time window where you don't have to pay the $500, right? Because I don't think any of us want to pay that. I don't want to pay that. So submitting within their time window, which is 4 months from the launch date of your book, to hope, that they'll review it and you don't have to pay for that. That one's going to have a lot more weight than a Kirkus review. To me, honestly, just as a reader and someone in the industry, I really don't care if it has a Kirkus review because I know behind it. So it doesn't really do anything for me, to be completely honest. And a lot of media affiliates don't really, that's not like a shining point. So I hope that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to point out, it's very interesting to me because last month we had a discussion with a bookseller and the question came up about like a review service and whether, she valued that or looked at the reviews that were listed. And I mean, I don't remember exactly what she said, but I think the gist of it was like, no, she doesn't look at that stuff. So it's just like
Yeah.
interesting. Next month, we're hearing this from you now too.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it's
it's notorious for Kirkus reviews. Now, if you have a publisher's weekly review, right, that's going to hold a lot more weight, right? Even if you pay the $500 or $600, depending on your word count, right? That one's going to have a lot more weight than a Kirkus review, right? But if I'm going to be completely honest with you from a reader standpoint, I'm going to go on Amazon or on Goodreads and I'm going to look at your 3 and 2-star reviews to see why they didn't read the book or they didn't like it, whether it just wasn't their genre or whatever. And then I'm going to go look at all your high rated ones, right? Because I want like a full picture, right? And your Kirkus review, because I'm in the industry, doesn't do that for me. So Publishers Weekly is the only one that's really going to be like, holy crap, like I want to read this book because of this review, right? That has a lot more weight than your Kirkus review, and it's a lot cheaper. And sometimes if you spit within their window, like I said, you don't have to pay that $500 and you get a pretty stellar review that's even better, right? So I would lean away from that.
I think we may have caught up with questions in the chat. I have one in the meantime, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. But if anybody wants to put another one in the chat or raise your hand, we'll get to you after my next question. But so just for a little bit of backstory for you. So I operate a publishing company, and one of the things that we have published is like young adult series or middle grade series fiction. And we've always had a hard time figuring out like how to get in front of the readers, how to like get the buzz generated about this. And then in the past couple of years, we heard about, I can't remember what this service that we used was called. I think it was bookstagrammers.com or something like that, where it was kind of a matchmaking service between the publisher and these influencers to like, you know, work together or whatever. But then the service we were using just basically hooked us up to the Instagrammers, but then it was up to the influencer whether they charge X amount per post or what their demands are, whatever. And I don't know if I'm just like too old and jaded at this point, but like the whole thing was just I didn't like the process. The whole time I was like, what good is this even doing? And then in the end, I was like, I don't know if that was even worth it. I don't know if my experience was typical or if I just didn't do it long enough or I wasn't doing it right. Like, I don't know if you have any kind of reaction to that.
Oh yeah, no, I will be completely honest with you. The influencer tool that I included is because the number one question, like I told you, is I get asked about influencers. Now, here's the cold hard truth when it comes to influencers. They are hella expensive and you are not going to reap a benefit. I'm telling you right now, because they're going to set their pricing at whatever their pricing is, and they're not going to guarantee anything. And really, that pricing can be for one post or like a 30-second video. And yeah, it goes out to all their people, but that doesn't convert into buys, right? So I've worked with that company that you're saying. I did one promotion through them and it was terrible and it was so confusing. And I just was like, I'm just going to build my own Instagram kind of affiliates and run that myself, which is what I did. But when it comes to influencer marketing, I will tell you to ease on the side of caution when it comes to that, because you're not always going to reap your benefits and you're going to spend a lot of money. So that would be a last resort for me. I'm not big into the influencer market in and of itself, right? So I don't find it beneficial. It hasn't been when I've used it. I've spent a lot of money and I didn't make any money.
Yeah, that's the same sense that I've gotten to. And it almost seems like, if you have success with an influencer, it's the exception and not the rule, like you can't plan for that.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things too, you also have to understand, right? When you're looking on social media or you're on TikTok or you see these reels and all these things, not all of them will just dispose that the books that they're recommending or product or whatever it is, right, that it's a sponsored ad. A lot of them don't disclose that, right, when they go and they recommend it. And so it's not something that I would necessarily look at and been like, oh, wow, like I'm sure that they've sold a lot of books. No, they didn't. I'm telling you, they didn't. And when it comes to influencer marketing, they want a high price for it. It has fed to this huge like pandemic, epidemic, however you want to word that. I'm not a writer, you guys. I just market. Okay. Pirating of books, right? And so it's caused a lot of problems on my end where we my company generally goes to bat for the author when these things happen. And it's been happening a lot more within the last 2 to 3 years of pirating of books due to these kinds of problems, right? So you always want to skirt the line on caution for that one.
Well,
would
yeah,
not
and
play it safe.
sometimes with that piracy, the answer is unless you're going to pursue legal action, like nothing's, nothing's going to happen anyway. So yeah. I
Yeah.
wanted to just share one quick, Sarah, I see that you have your hand up and I will call on you in 1 second. I just wanted to share one quick story, speaking of influencers,
Mhm.
just to highlight how ridiculous this is, right? So
Mm.
one of the series that we published, the author lives here in Michigan, but somehow he has gotten to know Dave Coulier, the actor that played, who is it, Uncle Joey on Full House? Yeah, Uncle Joey.
Mhm.
Anyway, he's also from Michigan. So somehow this author got Dave Coulier on board with the series. He had Dave Coulier oppose him holding the book that I published, like him holding it and talking about it, which was awesome to see, obviously, right? And like the author was so excited about that. And it was a big deal. It was a big deal. But guess what? So all day long, the next day, the author's like, how many sales did we have? Like, blah, blah, blah. And like the truth was, it was like from direct sales to my site, it was like 3 additional ones. And one of them was my aunt. Like, really, it took a celebrity endorsement for my aunt to buy my book. So it just goes to show, like, it doesn't matter. Like, Dave Coulier has a huge audience, and I don't know if it's just that there's so much content and so much posting, it's like hard to make a difference in all of the noise or what. But I just wanted to share that.
Well, so if a lot of people write, and I'm sure some of you guys under your biggest goals, you want to be on like Good Morning America or like a really big news channel to sell your book, right? Well, I hope I don't pop your bubble. Those things are going to cost you about $15,000 to $20,000 if you want to be on it. And we've put people on them, and let me tell you, they've sold 25 copies of their book, and that's it. Right? You've spent thousands of dollars and you sell 20 and 25 copies of your book because people still don't know you. Even if you're on that platform, it doesn't matter because they're tuning in to see the celebrities. They're not tuning in for you, right? I love you all dearly. I truly do. And I hope that doesn't pop your bubble. But it's the cold hard truth of reality, right? That's just what happens. So don't go for those big opportunities. You'll make more money, staying in smaller ones and building up. You'll sell more books.
Yeah, it's truly unbelievable. I have one more quick story to share. So another entertaining cookbook we did, it was actually picked up by Women's World, which was incredible, right? Like I was so excited that our book was in Women's World, and that too, like it didn't even move the needle. So I hate to sound so pessimistic and negative, but I also feel like it's important to be honest about like the truth of what happens from these opportunities. Okay, important. Sarah, I know you've been waiting. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. It sounds like speaking opportunities where like whoever in the very beginning said she sells 80 books when she's in front of 100 people. That's pretty amazing. Not my question, just a note. So my question is about distribution. Do you use PR and marketing to access, like how do people get, or is that all pay to play in terms of connecting with Target and Barnes and Nobles, etc.?
No, so I mean, we have relationships within those. Like, we just did a national buy of a memoir in Indigo, which is the Barnes and Noble of Canada, right? So we do those things to help you get you in the stores and do those things. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you is I'm sure all of you guys have a love-hate relationship with Ingram. So do I. Okay, so you're not alone. They're going to want you to be on Ingram because here in the States, Ingram is the biggest distributor. And so they're going to want you to be on there so they can purchase your books if you do a national buy, even if it's, going and doing book sales like Barnes and Noble down here in Texas and in Colorado. And I'm sure where all of you guys are from. If not, hey, start it. They are now letting independent authors or small presses, right, come in and have a table. It's once a month, once every couple of months or once a month, come in there and you can sell your books for like X amount of hours for both days. And then what it is they'll take their fee off the top. They have to go check them out, right? So you have to be on there. So Instagram's going to distribute online. If your book's online, they'll put it in their system. And then if you sell a book there, they'll do the bookstore kind of split with you. Every avenue that I've worked with, that's what they want. Now there is one bookstore here in Texas that has their own distributor. So you either have to go through them if you want to be in their bookstore, or you go through Ingram. That they give you that option. Most bookstores aren't going to want that. They're going to want the easy way, which is through Ingram, so they can order them. But your thing that you have to be very cautious of is it has to be returnable, right? So that's where your love-hate relationship with Ingram comes in, because I had a book that I published here recently, within the last year, I want to say, and I had bookstores buy it and then they shipped back their copies. I had to pay for that, right? So it ended up, you don't make any money when they do that, right? So you want to be careful when it comes to that, but being on Ingram will open up doors where you'll be online in all of those places, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, all of that. And then what you have to do is if you want to be in the stores, like at Barnes & Noble, all of the things, you can do one of those signings, or you can send like 15 to 20 of your friends and family in, and they can request the book, and then they don't have it, and then they're going to order it to keep it in the stores, right? That's one of the loopholes that you can do. I told you guys, I like my loopholes. So that's one of the loopholes that you can do. But as far as here in the States, Ingram's going to be your biggest distributor. There are other ones. There's Lulu that you can do, which I like. I feel like you have more creativity with it, but a lot of people are going to want Amazon or Ingram. Bookstores especially are going to want Ingram because they can return it, right? So that's kind of no risk for them. So I hope that
Yes.
answers your question.
I mean, I am on Ingram, but that doesn't mean that the books are actually in the
They're not in the store.
stores.
Yep. No, they're
Right.
online. So that's where you would have to have people like me, right? Go in and been like, oh, I'm looking for this book. Can you tell me where I can, get it? And then they'll be like, oh, it's online, just the ebook, but you want the paperback book, and then they'll order it. Right. And then the more people that you have come in asking for it, right? This is where you pull out like all the favors that people ask of you or that you have. And you're like, oh yeah, that's when you call in all your favors. And you're like, hey, go to this Barnes and Noble and ask for my book. Tell me what the paperback, and then they'll place an order to hold it in the store. So that's kind of the way that you have to finesse it, unless you get a national buy in Barnes and Nobles or anything kind of like that. But to be honest, right? When I go to Walmart or I go to Target or I go to Sam's or I go to Costco, right? I'm not looking at books. So you're just going to be sitting there. So it's not necessarily somewhere that you want to be in the store. Barnes and Nobles, yes, totally makes sense. But those other places isn't necessarily going to make a lot of sense. Your book's going to be sitting there for a long time. Even Prince Harry's book, right? When I was at Target, it had like a 30% off sticker, right? We don't want that, right? Because then you don't make any money. So it's not necessarily always a good thing to be in those stores because people aren't going for it. So Barnes and Nobles makes sense. I would do that, but I would caution. I'd rather be online for the other ones because you're not losing anything by being online. You could potentially lose something being in the stores.
Okay, that's super helpful. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go for it.
Conferences. I don't like, what do I just walk around the conference and hold my book? I don't get it.
Oh, no.
How do you sell books at conferences?
At conferences. Okay, are you speaking? Do you have a table? What are we working with? You have to give me some backstory here. I would do either one. If you're speaking, have a booth set up in the back and have somebody run that booth, because once you finish speaking, those people are going to go there. If you're not speaking, have a booth if they'll still let you sign up for a booth, and have your books there and do something that brings something to the table, right? So I have a children's book author. She goes to school events and farmers markets, all that stuff down here. And she has stuff on the table that kids want. So she has stuffed animals and candy and pencils and all these things that you get from the Dollar Tree at her table. And then she has her books, right? And she's where kids are going to be. So if you're at a conference and you have a booth, you can do a raffle, you can have a giveaway, you can have mints, candy, bubblegum, whatever you want on your table to bring people to that table. That's how you're going to sell books. And not being afraid to have someone else or you stand in front of your table and been like, hey, I like to read this genre. What genre do you like to read? Or just find your common ground, right? This is where you have to be an extrovert. So someone like me being with you is fabulous because we will talk to a fence post and probably, think that they're like, yeah, we totally want to move on and do these things, right? So having someone like that with you is going to be helpful, but having a table. Now, if you don't have a table, here's a loophole that you can do, right? If you go and you're listening to speaking and doing all these things, network with other authors or other people that are there at that conference. Make sure you have your author business cards because you guys are all business owners, small presses, authors. It don't matter. You're an authorpreneur, publisherpreneurs, how I call all of you guys, right? Make sure you have your business cards. And when you build up that relationship with that author, publisher, whatever it is, follow them on all their social media channels, send them an email or a direct message in their social medias if that's what you do. Let them know it was so great. You'd love to see how you guys could collaborate and do things kind of further, build that relationship. That way it's not a waste of time. And if you have a similar genre, you can do a newsletter swap, and that might also help you sell books. Just a loophole.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I did see one about what works on TikTok, romance, thrillers, and paranormals. Those are the 3 that are going to sell on TikTok. And what's really going to sell them is the music is what's going to sell them, and the text written over it. That's what's going to sell those books, to be completely honest. So,
Carmen, are you still there? She had a comment she wanted to make about book signings.
I am, and great presentation. Thank you for being here. I write books about rescue dogs.
okay.
When my book first came out in September of 2022, before the year ended, I had 15 book signings. Not one of them was at a bookstore. Not one of them was a pet store.
Yeah.
People buy books from people they like and they trust and they relate to. So
Exactly.
I knew my book was coming out. I did the Facebook thing. I did a lot of free speaking. I built relationships. My best-selling bookshop, I kid you not, my best book signing was at Firehouse Subs.
Nice.
That has nothing to do about dogs, but he liked
Yeah.
me. What did he charge me? Nothing. I sell books at florist, at antique store, any place where I have built a relationship, because I'm there bringing brand new customers to him. Customers they've never met before. So we're sharing each other. They're doing all their social media about local authors coming. I'm doing my social media, so it's a share.
Yay!
So I do really, really well. I'm going to say about 2 hours around me. I noticed in the chat someone said they do well at craft fairs. The problem is the books don't show up on your sales platforms. I don't care, because I get reviews.
That's what matters.
Because I get multiple buyers. I honestly don't look at rank. I look at rank. That's it. And then I can do press releases about what's happening, everything that you said. So what I find is go outside of what you normally would do. Your gut says, I need to be in a bookstore. No, you don't. They're going to charge you too much money. The majority of book signings I've done don't charge me anything.
Perfect. Yeah.
At all.
I love it. You're like
But
the poster child. I love it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that. And I was also the one that said, when I speak, my closing rate is really, really high. But one reason it's high, well, because it's dogs. And so I've really focused, they already know who I am. But the other thing when I do is I speak, I'll say, how much is your conference for your day conference for caregivers or whatever I'm speaking at? They will say, oh, it's 65 for continental breakfast and lunch. I said, no, it's not, it's 75.
Yeah.
It's 75 because you're going to say includes a free book from our keynote speaker, from our breakout speaker or whatever. So if I have 200 people at a conference, I have just guaranteed myself a payday, not just my fee, but also those books. And whether they show up or not, they have the book. But then I have that book table in the back, because they're going to buy other books, or they're going to buy books to give away as gifts. So just a couple other things that I've done over time. But
no, I love that. You should connect with Kim Lingling. So she has an award-winning podcast, and she does anthologies about animals.
Oh, what's her name?
It is Kim Lingling. Let me put it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm glad I mentioned that.
Yeah, because she has an award-winning podcast that is all about that. So veterans and dogs and how they've helped each other and just rescue dogs, all of those things.
Thank you.
She's wonderful. You would be a perfect fit for her show, and maybe even her anthology coming up. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I
Worth
told
the
you guys
price
I'm
of admission. There we go.
yeah, see,
Mhm.
there you go. I'm an open book, you guys. Like, whether we work together or you just have questions, you can always ask me if you're trying to create kind of like what Carmen did there and figure out how to do it. I'm an open book, you guys. Like, that's
I will
just
take
my
you to
nature.
lunch next time I'm in Houston because I have 3 sisters there.
Oh,
So,
fabulous.
yes,
I love
we'll
it.
connect next time I
Yes,
get
you
there.
let me know and I will make time in my schedule to have lunch
Perfect.
with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to mention that that trick is so slick what Carmen said about if you're going to be a speaker anyway, like somehow work it in so that they're buying books to give away of yours. And yeah, I mean, we like through my work at MiPA, we talked to different speakers and stuff, and we had one lady who was doing a special presentation for us, and she did the same thing where she wanted copies of her ebook sold, and it makes so much sense. And like not everybody asks for that, and like it seems like it's worthwhile to ask something like that.
Well, it's
Yeah.
such a value added. You know, there's a competition to get people to come to your conference. They don't know it could have been 65. If they're going to pay 65, they're going to pay 75. They're going to pay 129, you're going to pay 139. They don't know the difference. Now,
Yeah.
if it, you know, if you get, if it was going to be 89 and all of a sudden it's 109, that's different because you got those price breaks that people, that's a brick wall. But I've never been told no.
Yeah. Most of them are going to be, they're pretty open to that.
And then you just drop ship them to them and you don't have to carry the crap.
Yeah, right.
You know,
If you don't
because
have
that's
to
a
lug
really,
it, if you don't have to lug it back home, why not?
yeah.
Yeah.
Aimee, I saw you responded to Colin's question. I wanted to bring that up too. So his question was, do you disseminate press releases in addition to writing them? And I would think the answer must be yes. Of course, yes, you must. But I would love it for you to talk about how and where you do that.
Yeah, so we will write the press release, or if you want to write it yourself, we use all kinds of things. So I mentioned the EIN newswire, which goes everywhere, and it's like $200 and you don't usually get stuff from it, right? But it goes everywhere. So we use those on top of targeting that local community. So say that you were going to come speak down here in Houston, right? I'm like an hour north, but if you're going to come speak in Houston, I'm going to also send that out to all of the news outlets there, the online magazines, and the event calendar that they have there that, hey, you're going to be speaking on this day, right? So that way it's kind of spread far and wide on top of that. So it's going to get distributed locally to where either you are located or you're going to be located for your speaking event or whatever you're doing. So we try to tailor it towards those things or to major cities that you're in between. So I have a client that's between Seattle and Portland. So we distributed her press release nationally and within those 2 cities as well as hers, because hers is pretty small, those 2 big major cities. So that way, if anything were to come about, yes, she would have to travel there, but it'll give her more exposure. So that's how we localize while going abroad, if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. So if it doesn't, let me know.
I have a question. If
Yeah.
you're trying to publicize like a book launch or a speaking event or something like that, like how far in advance should we be telling the media about the event?
So it depends on what other marketing you've done leading up to it. So my timeline works like this, right? 6 months out, your book's completed. If you're working with someone like me doing PR and marketing, we're going to have that completed ARC file and we're going to be sending it out for editorials. So we hit their 4-month windows, and I think it's Library Journal has 6 months. So we can give you guys the best opportunity for that. So we've already set your launch date. Like I have one that's in June, right? So their launch date was June 7th last year. So June 7th is when it is. We've already submitted for editorial reviews. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage all of the marketing for that, slowly building up, right? And then in May is when we're going to hit it really hard. So in May is when I would distribute a press release saying that this book is coming out. And then the 1st of June is when I'm going to redistribute that locally within all of those communities, on all of my channels, all of that, while promo stacking their book to make sure they have the ultimate success, if they care about ranking, all of those things, right, is when I'm going to resubmit it. So I'm going to tease them, the news and all those outlets in May, because I'm an awful person, and then I'm going to really tease them a week before it comes out, and then when it comes out, it sets it up for success, right? And then you can release it after the fact, right? If it becomes a bestseller and USA and all those things, and we're going to release one after the fact of, hey, check out this massive success that this book had and how you can still get your copy, right? So there's 3 of them leading up to it, if that timeline, if you can follow that timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
any other
it's a lot
questions from
of,
anybody?
doing those things. I think Nancy has one.
Yeah.
All right, Nancy,
So,
go ahead.
a follow-up to her question, when you send out the second release and then the one right there, June 1st, and then the week of, day of, whatever, is it the same one, or do you rewrite it so it has a little bit more different content, or do you add a little more nugget to it and make it better? Or do you
Yeah.
just,
Well, so the one the month before is announcing that this book is coming and it has that date. The one that's the week before is telling everyone, hey, be on the lookout this month, this day, a week from today. This is what's coming out, right? And here's some of the reviews or feedback that it's received, right? And then if you're going to run a promotion on your ebook, right, 99 cents, $1.99, all of you guys know how to do that, right? So if you're doing that, it's going to be mentioned within that. So that way it's more enticing, right? So you have these
okay,
huge reviewers that it's already received. If it's an editorial review, it's going to be on discount to make sure you can go in on this day, right? For this long. So if we're running the discount from June 7th through June 8th is going to be listed in that press release. And then when it comes after the fact, it's all going to be about the massive success that it had, right? Whether it hit number 1 or not, just the amount of downloads and purchases and all of that and accolades that it's received, this is what that book did, right? So it's after the fact. So then you
Okay.
change that wording.
nice, like that,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So can you,
June.
could you say something about blogs and newsletters? How would you use them and which platform would they be most effective on?
Both. If you're
Both.
talking about doing straight blogs. So a lot of reviewers, we work with a lot of reviewers that post on Amazon, Goodreads, and their personal blog, and some other places as well. The blogs, a lot of them, I ask the question of how much viewership does your blog get in a month and then a year, right? How much did it get the previous month and how much should it get for the whole year? Even if it's last year, right? If you're just starting out, what did it get last year, right? What was your end number? That's really important.
I have not set up a blog. I've thought of it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what do I do?
Well, so it depends on your outcome, right? So if you're wanting to set up a blog to just blog about your life, then it's just writing every day, right? If you're wanting to set up and be like a reviewer, then it's being strategic and giving constructive feedback and doing that, right? Because a lot of my bloggers and reviewers, if their review is going to be less than 3.5 stars, they generally send it to me first because you guys as authors don't want those posted, right? So we generally go through that and we send it to the author, and if they're okay with it because it was in a constructive manner, then we'll post it, right? So if you're wanting to do that, I would set that up on your website. A newsletter in terms of selling books from a publisher standpoint and an author standpoint is going to be the most important because it's how you have direct contact with your readers, whether they've already bought your books or not. It doesn't matter because they can buy them for friends, family, all of that, right? And it can keep extending. So in terms of selling books, a newsletter is going to be way more important for authors and publishers than a blog. A blog's more important when you're looking for reviews. I
Okay.
hope that answers your question.
Well, and then so this would be for people who bought your books. Does this mean you collect their email, or how do you collect people for your newsletter?
Yeah, so you usually have an opt-in on your website. So a lot of authors will do a free first chapter, or if they have several books in their series, the first book is free. And once you type in your email, right, depending on what your website is, if it's in Wix or GoDaddy or WordPress, they all have their own integration into an email marketing campaign. Like MailChimp is one that I use a whole lot. If not, there's a third-party one. I think it's Zapper. I haven't used it in a while, so I'm not 100% sure on the name. That integrates between a website that's not built within any of those and your mailing marketing system that you've done or email marketing campaign that you've done. But having some kind of opt-in and changing that, recycling through that every 3 to 6 months where it's something new, is what's going to keep those emails coming in, and it'll automatically go into your email marketing campaign. Yes, Zapier. Thank you, Sarah. It'll automatically go and save it wherever your email marketing campaign is hosted, and then you select it and you send it out. So that's generally how that works. That's more if you're wanting to get into that, whoever designed your website can help you connect those dots. But to get people to sign up, what you're going to want to do is give something away or have some kind of opt-in is what's going to draw people towards it.
Okay.
For children's
so-
books, I have coloring pages and those things.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it would basically go on your website. Would
Yes, that's where
Okay.
your opt-in is going to be. And then from there, it's going to connect to an email marketing system. And then you'll use that system, your newsletter. It all starts with your website.
okay. I have to update my website. It's a mess.
Well, websites are always just works in progress, I think.
What?
I said websites are always just works in progress. There's always
Oh.
something you need to do on it.
Well, I had a pretty good one, and then for some reason they disassembled it into bits and pieces. So I got to pick up the pieces and put it back together.
I did a blog tour last year. It was the one thing I actually paid for. It paid off so many dividends. Somebody chose the blogs based on the interest of their readers. I had saw such a great bump on Amazon on my books, but I got so many reviews from that.
Yeah.
And I also got featured in Women's World, and I actually had book sales. Probably only a couple of dozen, but it didn't cost me anything. And so blog tours can be very effective. They can also be a big bust. I would 100% do it again because I'm in book number 2 of the series. So we're going to go back to those bloggers and then add more. And every single one I got was a 5-star review. So that was really fun to do that. So
Even better.
yeah, but I could do it myself, but at some point I like to sleep sometimes. So
Well, how do you access a blog tour?
well, we're gonna let the experts say that.
There's a lot of different sites that you can do, but we build up relationships with bloggers that are beneficial and have become lucrative, like Carmen's saying, for our clients that we work with. And then we just have those relationships in there. But there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of sites that'll put you in connection with them. But you can also go and kind of Google and find them. Like I have a popular one in Houston that does all kinds of reviews for all kinds of things. That's a fellow author that does reviews as well. Her website hits 1.2 million a month, right? So it's one of those things. You just build these relationships as you go, but you can Google them and they'll put you in contact with different ones if you want to find those. You do have to vet them though. And Goodreads is probably a really good place to also find them. It's a good place where I find a lot of reviewers that are very honest as well. So there's different resources and things out there that you can utilize. Yeah.
Okay. So Goodreads is a good source.
Yeah, I have found a lot of mine that have been quite successful and lucrative for my authors on there and within different author communities that I run. So that's another place that you can find them. You are welcome, Sarah. Does anybody else have any more questions or anything before I'm out?
So
No?
well, thank you so much for the information.
Oh, absolutely. I'm an open book, you guys, anytime. Anytime. I've been doing this for a
Easy to
long
read.
time.
You're an open book.
Yes.
Aimee, do you have a hard time keeping up with like new social media trends and stuff like that?
No, I follow a lot. Like Social Media Examiner is my go-to. So I generally stay up to date with them and tune into their different webinars and their conferences and stuff that they go to. I mean, sometimes I have to make the the decision on whether or not we're going to do that, platform or offer that platform from a company standpoint. But, things are just always changing. I will say from a personal standpoint on social media, I'm on it a lot less because we manage so many that I have no desire to do it on my own anymore. But, it's just fun stuff.
Yeah.
It keeps me on my toes. That's for sure.
Mary Jo was asking for your contact info. Do you want to put your website or anything in the chat there?
Sure. You can have my website and you can have my email, and I'm more than happy to communicate and talk to any one of you guys and bounce ideas off me however you want to. I'm here to help you guys.